Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to the 2024 Mazda 3 Turbo Premium Plus hatchback. Mazda has made a few tweaks to the 2024 model year, and I can't wait to see if this $36,000+ hatchback can actually double as a fun canyon carver. I've always thought this generation of Mazda 3, especially in hatchback form, has been one of the best looking cars in its segment. The way I sum this car up from the exterior styling perspective is an angry egg. Although this design does limit the outward visibility from inside the car, from outside, I think this design is a home run. But that's not where it ends. Even on the interior, this car feels super premium. It definitely punches above its weight class, almost, if not directly, competing with entry-level German luxury cars. In Premium Plus trim, we have leather all across the dash, the doors, very nice stitching here. Unfortunately, there is a large swath of piano black right by the shifter. Silver trim across the dash. It feels really nice quality and gives this car a much more upscale feel than pretty much every sub $40,000 hatchback on the market. I would argue that this interior feels even more upscale than the Acura Integra A-Spec. Very simple 3-spoke steering wheel, physical buttons for everything. For 2024, we also get this upsized 10.25-inch center infotainment display. It can be used as a touchscreen when you're in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but we also have the classic Mazda rotary knob here, which works pretty well once you get used to it. Now, in terms of dimensions, this car is smaller than some of its direct competitors, including the Honda Civic. It is a little bit bigger than the Toyota Corolla, however. With this car, you're not paying to have maximum interior space for cargo or rear passengers, although you can fit 4 adults relatively comfortably as long as everyone is 5'9" or below. So let's talk about mechanicals. This is powered by the 2.5-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine. It makes 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque on regular 87 octane fuel. It is rated on 93 octane, which we can't get here in California, at 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet. Ultimately, this is not intended to be a rip-your-face-off hot hatch in terms of performance. 0 to 60 is rated in the high 5-second range. This is all-wheel drive, of course, but it is a front-wheel drive-based architecture that only directs partial torque to that rear axle when it detects that you need it. And in Turbo Premium Plus trim, this weighs right around 3,400 pounds. So given its diminutive dimensions, this is not a lightweight car. It's designed, again, to feel upscale and high quality and premium first and foremost. And things like practicality and sportiness take a little bit of a back seat. But that's not going to prevent me from taking it for a rip on my favorite canyon road and seeing how this thing performs. And this comes with a 6-speed torque converter automatic transmission as your only choice of transmission with the turbocharged engine. That's a bit of a bummer. It would have been great to be able to get this with a 6-speed manual transmission, which is offered in the naturally aspirated version, which makes less than 200 horsepower and is front-wheel drive only. In terms of the gauge cluster here, we have a familiar design with a digital speedometer and multi-function display in the middle, flanked by 2 analog gauges. We do have a toggle switch here for sport mode, push to the left to engage manual shift mode. Now, it is drizzling out here, which might actually be the perfect way to test the driving capabilities and all-weather capabilities. The first thing I'm noticing is just the immense low-end torque. Even though this car weighs at a pretty hefty 3,400 pounds, 310 pound-feet of torque from 2,000 RPM. It's more than quick enough in a straight line, at least for everyday driving. Now, this transmission, it's very smooth. You barely feel the shifts around town, but when you start pushing it, you do wish it was a little bit quicker to shift and perhaps had closer gear ratios. With that being said, for everyday driving, it's really well matched to the engine. Another thing I'm liking is the steering. Electric power steering, but it's very nicely weighted. has good on-center feel. See, even through these tighter corners, we can just leave it in third gear because there's so much low-end torque. Even from 2,500 RPM, you put your foot down and the thing just pulls. It's not a top-end motor by any means. In fact, it doesn't really want to rev out to 6,000 RPM. You can shift this at 5,000 all day long and still feel like you're getting the full performance that this engine has to offer. Yeah, this engine is just a little torque monster. It's just a flat power band throughout the rev range. You don't really feel the acceleration pick up as you build revs. And we're on some 18-inch wheels with the Turbo Premium Plus and some all-season tires. So this is not a car with sporting pretenses. But honestly, you can hustle down a canyon road. McPherson strut front suspension, not the most sophisticated, but you do have that all-wheel drive traction to help you rocket out of corners. Well, rocket wouldn't be the right word to use. This thing does have somewhat lazy responses, as you'd expect for a car that's 3,400 pounds and not really designed to be a canyon carver. But honestly, it's pretty dang capable. You can really get into a groove with this car. There's a little bit of turn and understeer, but that makes the car easy to drive hard. I'm sure in the snow this thing would be a riot. Oh yeah. A hot hatch, this is not, but a lukewarm hatch, I would argue it is. And you know what? I actually like the feeling of heft to this car, not only in the way it's built. I mean, these seats feel so plush, so comfortable that they actually feel heavy. The steering similarly is heavier than what you'd find in most other hatchbacks. And the way this car handles the corners, it doesn't feel like a sprightly little hatchback that sacrifices build quality and choice of materials in order to give you a low price and a very nimble driving experience. This feels like something that's designed to be driven every day and to give you a sense of security and confidence. So in that regard, it's actually a bit of a unique proposition in the hatchback market right now. Honestly, this steering rack, the more I get used to it, the more impressed I am. There's actually some information about the road surface coming through. I wish this engine made a little bit more sound. Brake feel is not this car's strong suit. Now granted, this is a press car with over 4,600 miles, so I'm sure it's been beat on by more than a couple of journalists. The suspension of this car finds a pretty good middle ground, I would say. It keeps the body relatively controlled, and on a daily basis, it's comfortable enough. The ride quality, I would say, overall matches the interior build quality. It is a little bit on the firmer side, but not annoyingly so. It's not a harsh riding vehicle by any means. As you've probably noticed, I've maintained a more or less stoic face throughout this review. But you know what? That's, again, not the point of this car. This is a car that is fun to drive and feels impressive up to around 5/10. But once you get to that 7/10 marker, where most hot hatches begin to really hit their stride in terms of driving dynamics, this car starts to fall a bit flat. The engine lacks character. There's really no top end to speak of. The transmission is a little bit slow to shift and the gear ratios are a bit long, and the limitations of this front drive based all-wheel drive system do become apparent. But look, you can't get an all-wheel drive Acura Integra, Honda Civic, or Toyota Corolla with a turbocharged engine. You can get a Golf R, but that's a more expensive vehicle and doesn't offer the same level of ergonomics as this Mazda. I love the fact that this still retains physical controls for pretty much everything. It offers a decent suite of driving aids, lane keep assist, radar cruise control, although I do wish it had the same level of lane keep assist technology as my Integra Type S, which really does such a good job at just keeping me in the lane, whereas this system basically just alerts me by shaking the steering wheel and steering me back into the lane once I'm about to exit the lane. The system in the new Honda and Acura products is a lot more proactive. This is more reactive. But that aside, I've been driving this car for the last 5 days or so, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Was carrying around 4 people and my dog just the other day and still managed to average over 25 miles per gallon. This is rated at 31 on the highway, 23 in the city, for a combined average of 26 miles per gallon. That's not class leading by any means, but then again, 310 pound-feet of torque from 2,000 RPM. What other non-hot hatch hatchback can offer that level of torque? My only complaint with this car is that I've noticed when I'm cruising along at freeway speed, say 60 miles an hour and above, there's a very deep, bassy rumble emanating from the car somewhere. At first, I thought it might be the subwoofer, but even when I turn the music off, there's a deep, pulsing, bassy rumble. It's pretty off-putting. I wonder if it's a wheel bearing or a tire maybe. But the 2023 Mazda 3 hatch that I drove last year didn't have that problem, so I'm sure it's not normal. But all in all, really enjoyable little hatchback. It's a great daily driver, it's efficient, it's torquey, it has a great interior, as long as you can live with the relatively smaller interior dimensions. So a big thank you to Mazda for providing this press car for review. Let me know what you think of the Mazda 3 Turbo Premium Plus all-wheel drive. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.